Hey everyone, my name is Alexandra and I am a watercolor artist. With Easter coming up so soon, I wanted to show you guys 3 different ways to paint super simple, easy, cute Easter eggs. Let's get started. What you guys will need for supplies today is a napkin for drying your paintbrushes, 2 cups of water. I have one for clean, one for dirty water. For paint palette today, I'm using Philisophy and Co's terrain palette. Main thing that I was looking for when picking colors is just bright, fun, Eastery colors, so you guys can use whatever you'd like for that. I'm using 140-pound cold press watercolor paper, 3 different paintbrush sizes. I have Opus Allegros 2, 4, and 8. And lastly, you guys don't 100% need it, but a pencil just for drawing the first shape. To start, I've prepped my page, and with a pencil, I super lightly drew 3 different shapes of eggs. You guys don't have to do this step, but I find it's easier for me to just follow that and make sure that they're somewhat in line with each other. The first egg that we're going to be painting is sort of just a colorful speckled egg. So nothing too crazy, but these ones are fun. I'm gonna show you guys how to do it in sort of a yellow color, but this is one that you guys can definitely do in any color that you have. So I'm just mixing it on my palette. My yellow paint, I'm mixing it with a tiny bit of red just to get sort of a little bit more depth to it. And I'm using my large paintbrush right now, so the first thing that I'm going to do is we'll start with the center one here, and I'm just painting the entire thing in. And I'm gonna start with a very light layer, and then we'll add some shading in. So I'm filling in the entire shape that I've drawn here. And now while it's still wet, I want to add that depth and dimension. So I'm going to go in, I'm using the sassafras yellow here, which is a really nice sort of natural gold looking yellow. And I'm actually just going to fully paint in this corner. And because it's wet, it's going to do a really nice job of just bleeding into the rest of the egg that I have there. And then once I've done that, I'm actually just going to go and I'm going to kind of dot in that color throughout the egg. I want to give it a little bit of a speckled look. So just dotting in that color, sort of leaving it lighter towards the top. And now I want to add even more depth and shading towards the bottom. So I'm mixing that yellow with some red. So it's the sassafras yellow with the crabapple red, and we're just going to go into that bottom corner and just really add that depth and dimension. But this time I'm not fully filling it in. I'm kind of dotting the paint in more and just spreading it out. All right, so now we're gonna let that dry, and then once it's dry, I'm gonna go in just with another layer to add some speckles to it, which are really fun. All right, so now that this is dry, we're just gonna go in and add some little speckle details. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take my small paintbrush and I'm gonna go back into that yellow color, sort of watered down, and essentially I'm just dotting in the color. And I'm okay for this specifically if the water sort of bubbles over, because it tends to give it a really cool look as it dries when you do that. So I'm just doing little dots scattered throughout. All right, and now we're just gonna let that one dry and we'll move on to our next egg. So the second one that we're doing, I wanted to show you guys a way to paint it with sort of a cool floral pattern. So we're gonna start with, since I wanna get nice bright Eastery colors, we're gonna use this sourwood red color, and we're gonna start by painting some flowers. So I'm just gonna do a collection of little flowers on this one. So using my small paintbrush, what I'm going to do is I'm gonna paint 5 little petals sort of clustered around, and then I want to make sure that the petals kind of cut off where I drew those lines for the edge of my egg. So I'm making these flowers small specifically so that we can use a few different colors and really have fun with this. Now for this step, again, I'm just painting tiny little sort of teardroppy oval shapes around an imaginary circle. If you haven't painted flowers a ton or are really struggling with this, one thing that you could do is either draw a little circle for the center of the flower to kind of work around, or you can even paint in the center of the flower first I'll probably use either a brown or a yellow color. I like to leave it empty often so that I can kind of fill in all the flowers and then decide what color I want to use. But again, you'll see I'm just painting these little flowers scattered around, again making sure to cut off the edges, sort of where the edge of the egg is. So I'm gonna do one right at the top. All right, and now we're gonna do another color. So we'll put some purple flowers in there. And again, same idea. These ones I might do them really, really tiny. So I'm essentially just putting 5 little dots in a circle around each other. Okay, and I might go in and add some more in a little bit, but I'm gonna move to my next step and just add some leaves so that we can really start to see the shape of this coming together. So in my palette, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna use this vine leaf green. I might mix it with a tiny bit of my fern color just to get the brightness in it that I want. All right, and now sticking with my small brush, I'm going to start painting some little branches with leaves. So I'll start with that center line, and then I'm just going to paint my tiny little leaves coming down, sort of working around where the edge of that main shape is. Again, this is just so that we can start really getting that definition so that we can actually tell what we're looking at. So I'll do another little branch off to the edge here, and I'm kind of working around the flowers that I see. And essentially we're just filling in these spaces. So you'll notice that by adding the leaves as well as the combination of bright colors, you get a really fun Easter springy look to it. Now, if you guys want a more detailed, more in-depth tutorial on how to paint watercolor leaves, I do have a video on my channel on how to paint a basic watercolor leaf, which is what I'm doing here, and it's one of the staples that I use in so many of my florals. But yeah, right now our focus with this one is just evenly scattering every element that you're adding to sort of have a really nice balance, as well as, yeah, to show the shape that we want to show. So again, I'm just extending some of my branches where I feel like I need to fill in the space a little bit better. We'll add one more down here. I'm gonna go this direction. Now, this is something that you guys can have so much fun with painting different types of leaves, different types of flowers. It's something that I absolutely love painting, and especially if I'm wanting to do something like an Easter card, what I might do is 3 of these, but I'll paint them all just a little bit different. All right, so we're just gonna add in one more leaf right here where I feel like it's kind of missing it. And with these, you can go as loose as you'd like or as detailed as you'd like. So now I want to add in a bit of yellow color just because I feel like it has a really nice pop against the other colors that are already in there. So I am going to use yellow for the center of my flowers. So for these centers, I'm not painting a specific circle or anything, I'm just dotting the color in. And you'll see it's really subtle, but it makes specifically the purple stand out so much more. All right, and now at this point, I definitely could leave it as it is, but I am going to go in and add just a little bit more detail to my painting. So we're gonna add a tiny bit of detail to our leaves and just make it look so much more intricate. I don't know if you guys have seen the hand-painted eggs, but I love how they're always so detailed and just so beautifully done. So to add some more detail, I'm just taking a green that's a little bit darker, a little bit more pigmented than what I was using before. And I'm adding really fine lines just to give each leaf more definition. So for this right now, I'm using the number 2 paintbrush. I might switch to a smaller paintbrush just to get that really, really fine detail. But if you guys are using a bigger paintbrush, it's definitely doable. You just have to really focus on using that tip, the fine tip of the paintbrush. So this is such a simple thing that I'm doing to add detail, but you can see that it just makes them stand out so much more, and it gives it that little bit of definition that it was missing. All right, and there you have our second version of our watercolor Easter egg. So now the last one that we're gonna paint, we're sort of gonna follow the same floral theme, and we're gonna paint this Easter egg kind of looking like a wreath. So as you guys know, painting floral wreaths is one of my favorite things I love to do for Christmas, fall, spring, all of the things. So I, of course, had to do the same thing for an Easter egg. So we're doing the exact same thing as my floral wreath videos that I have, but this time we're just following the shape of our egg, and we're gonna make sure to keep really nice spring colors. So I'm gonna start with painting a flower just to be my starting point. I'm gonna mix a nice fun pink color, and I'm going to paint a really simple rose. So what I'm doing is using my paintbrush, I'm just painting little C curve shapes around each other, and they're very loose and they're kind of blending in. So often what I tell people when they're painting roses is to sort of imagine something like a cinnamon bun or something along those lines, where the petals are weaving around each other and making this nice shape. But again, I'm just keeping it really loose, really simple, and I'm going to paint a mini version of this. So again, using those small little C-curve shapes. And you can see when you're looking at it really closely, sometimes it kind of just looks like a blob of color or of paint. But as it comes together with everything else, you can definitely tell that it's a rose just by following that sort of fundamental idea of painting little curved shapes in a circular form. Okay, so now that we've done that, we're gonna go in and we're gonna add some leaves and then fill it with flowers. So I'm going into my green, and this is gonna be our center point here that we're gonna work our way out of. But I sort of wanna work my way down from the top and just really get that shape. So I'm painting the same style leaves that I was doing in my other egg, where it's just that really thin line down the center, and then our leaves are coming out around it. But this one, I'm sort of curving them to create that shape that I want to create. So now, stemming from this flower that I've painted on the left here, I'm going to do another branch, and I'm generally following the shape that I drew for the egg, but it's okay if I come off of it a little bit, just to keep this looking, yeah, just really loose and really natural. So now I'm going to do the same thing towards the bottom here, and again, that branch is generally following the shape that I've drawn, but I kind of have it stemming off and sticking out. So now this one that I'm attaching off of this main flower, I'll do some bigger leaves just to really have that focal point be the first flower that I painted. And then we're gonna do the same thing on the other side. And as we did with our first floral Easter egg that we painted, we're just gonna keep adding details as we go and as layers dry. I find when I'm painting with watercolor, I tend to jump around a lot because certain times you have to work very quickly while things are wet, and other times you have to just wait for something to dry before you can add more details. Okay, so now that I've done that, as you guys will notice, I've sort of left some spaces, some white gaps in there. I really want to just fill this with flowers now and really just have it come to life. So we're gonna start with our yellow paint, and we're gonna add in some yellow flowers. So I'm gonna do some that will stem off of these branches that I've painted. And honestly, what I'm doing for this, because it is so small and so little, I'm just painting little blobs with yellow, but I'm leaving some white space. So for this, you guys will notice that there's not much form or detail going into it because it is so mini. We're just adding that color in however we can. So with the yellow specifically, I'm just doing little blobs of color, and then I'm gonna add in a second rose beside this first one that I've done. Or sorry, not the first one, I guess the second one that I painted, but beside this rose on the right-hand side here, we're just gonna paint another one clustered beside it. And I'm gonna do the same thing in this bottom corner here. So messy cluster of colors that somewhat resembles flowers, but as you put it all together, you just see how quickly it all comes to life. So now I want to add some little blue flowers in. Often when I think of blue flowers, first thing that comes to mind is forget-me-nots. So we're going to follow the same concept that we did with the purple flowers on this second painting that we did, and just do tiny little flowers. So I have 5 circles that all attach to each other. So we're going for 5 petals here. And forget-me-nots are often clustered together, so we might paint a few beside each other. And then I want to fill in some of these gaps. So beside my main rows, I'm going to go right on top of this leaf here and just paint in a couple little blue flowers. And as you can see, just by scattering them throughout and adding these little pops of color, there's such a difference in the painting. And you could just see how much more vibrant it becomes immediately. And like I mentioned, when I'm painting each flower, there's not much detail that's going into it, but it makes such a huge difference. Okay, so now that I've done that, we're gonna go in and just add a few more purple flowers, and then we'll fill it with leaves and it should be just about done. So I'm gonna do the same thing that I did with the yellow flowers with the purple ones and just paint them so they sort of look like they're opening up. So you can kind of think of something maybe like tulips for this, or just any flower often when you're looking at it from the side and it's opening up. So I can paint, if I want, sort of 3 circles. You can imagine you're painting half of one of those 5-petal flowers. And again, I'm just scattering it all the way around my wreath here to really balance out the color. I want to make sure that everything is evenly spread and it looks really full. So now in the center of my blue flowers, now that they're dry, I'm going to add in little yellow dots. I had to wait till they're fully dry just because with blue, if I add the yellow in too soon, it'll all just bleed together and make sort of a green mess. All right, now that that is done, we are adding in more branches. So I want to add really thin little stems from each of these flowers and just connect them to the main wreath. So I'm just filling in any of those white spaces that I maybe hadn't previously added any color to. And just by adding more lines for stems, you're giving it a really full look. And then lastly, as I did with my last egg, is I'm gonna do the same thing and add some detail to the leaves. So I'm just taking a darker green paint and I'm sort of mixing it in to the tip of each leaf just to really give it that definition. So by doing this, I'm just starting from the tip of my leaves and I'm doing simple lines coming down. If I was painting this in a bigger version, I might be more specific on the actual details that I'm adding. But here, really what I am looking for is to just add some depth to it. Right, and that is all we have for our last watercolor egg. So I just want to show you guys this first one that we did. Now that those spots have dried, because I specifically had more water on my paintbrush, you can see how it dried with these really cool rings around, which just gives it a neat speckled look. But here are 3 different watercolor eggs you can paint. It's something that if I'm painting specifically Easter cards, what I might do is I might take one version and paint a couple of them, or fill the page with them, just with either different colors or different flowers or different things to make it look really cool and really unique. If you guys followed along with this video, please do take a photo, send it to me, or tag me on Instagram at Alexandra Victoria Studio. These are such fun things to paint, so I would love to see what you guys are doing. Also, if you haven't already, make sure to like this video and subscribe to this channel. See you next time.